The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
Is the planet stupid?
No. It's the planet stupid.
Our guide for It's the Planet Stupid, eco-journalist Belinda Waymouth. Hi, Belinda.
Hi, how are you?
Love that you bring some good news occasionally to this grim scene when it comes to planetary health. And one of the things you're touching on, as I understand it, is the effort to save a lot of coral from the bleaching process that seems to be an epidemic with the coral around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is happening on the Great Barrier Reef. So these Australian oceanographers are down there, and what they're doing is they are using boats, taking salt water, pressurizing it, and then vaporizing it by sending it out through hundreds of tiny little nozzles. And yeah, that's what they're doing. They're creating a fog, and then they have these misters on the back of the boat, and that sends out 2 more streams of mist. And then the 3 of these trails of water in the atmosphere then form this blanket, and they're going to put it over strategic parts of the Great Barrier Reef, the most important ecologically, to help cool it down and to shade it in the hot summer months. Because as we know, reefs, as particularly tropical reefs, we have deep sea reefs and cold oceans that are not doing nearly as badly as what's happening to our tropical reefs. And the Great Barrier Reef has basically halved in the last 30 years. So this is really, really crunch time for it. And what's really interesting is, so this apparatus was developed, you'll be it was developed by a group here in California, and it's now being used in Australia. Geoengineering has gotten a really, there are the Aussie guys on the deck of their one of their vessels pointing their fabulous water vapor up into the sky.
Yeah, it looks like one of those snow guns you might see at a ski area type thing. For those just listening,
Yeah, it's really like that. Like, there's not enough snow, we'll make snow. So there aren't enough clouds, we'll make clouds. And what's really interesting about this is, so a lot of clouds have big water droplets, and there aren't a lot of them. And what this strategically does is make very small water droplets. And so when the water droplets form a cloud, and that's what happens when water vapor condenses on any kind of particles that are in the atmosphere, so dust, soot, pollution, pollen. But when you have tiny little droplets, it means there's a lot more surface area to be reflective and to reflect the radiation from the sun back up into the atmosphere. So the tininess of the droplets is what's really key. And here's the thing that's interesting. So geoengineering has had a very, very bad rap. In the 1990s, when people started talking about it and they knew we were heating up the atmosphere and we needed to do something, and geoengineering basically means changing the planet. A lot of scientists said, no, you can't do that. There could be repercussions. But here's the thing, Mark. Human beings have already changed the planet, many times over. I mean, the Pleistocene, hunter-gatherers, we hunted and ate all the megafauna. I mean, practically. I mean, the saber-toothed tiger and the giant sloth that used to be here in America, do you see them anymore? No, they're gone. The woolly mammoth, it's gone. So we did that, and that had an impact on the climate. And then we've already geoengineered the atmosphere to the point where it's super, super hot. And I sent over that graph to you, Tony, to show, so we were sort of more or less, you'll see it's jagged, it goes up and down, but we stayed, around 270 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere pre the Industrial Revolution. And then since then, it's gone bonkers, and particularly, this century. In 2013, we went for the first time above 400 parts per million, and now we're, well above the 400 parts per million. So that's geoengineering. We did that. And so what these Australian, oceanographers are doing, I think, is geoengineering that is positive. And the other thing that's really positive about it is that they are talking to all the stakeholders, the rangers and the people who look after the various parts of the Great Barrier Reef. It's not like the people who wanted to take commercial jetliners filled with sulfur particles up into the atmosphere and just start spraying that everywhere. to act as a blanket to stop the sun's radiation coming in. Or there were a couple of people who were like, oh, we're going to put iron into the ocean and cause an algal bloom, a huge algal bloom that will suck in all the CO2, and you've got to do it with, politicians, governments, the local people who live in those areas. They have to agree to this. And this is what these guys are doing, which is really different. And while there are still scientists who are saying, hey, you shouldn't be messing with nature, they're doing this on a very targeted small scale. So you go to a really important, there are 3,000 different reefs that make up the whole system of the Great Barrier Reef. Just to give people an idea of how big it is, it's the size of Italy. It's huge.
Wow.
They're never going to be able to protect all of it. But I've explained before on the show, tropical coral reefs are very, very important. They provide the livelihoods of 1 billion of the people on Earth. You've got the coral triangle. So you've got the Great Barrier Reef, yes, here on the off the northeastern coast of Australia. And then above Australia, you've got one called the Coral Triangle, and that's Northern Australia, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, the Solomon Islands, the Philippines, Malaysia, and all the people who live around that coral reef. They are getting their livelihood in, the fish that they fish out of it and they sell. And then also it's their source of protein. So the health of these coral reefs is super important. And why it's bleaching. Yeah, there's the Coral Triangle. I've written about this before. It's an amazingly important, we've got 7 sea turtles in the world. 6 of them live in the Coral Triangle. I mean, it's really important. And all juveniles go to coral reefs to mature. So whether they're sharks or whether they're smaller fish, they go to a coral reef, they mature before they go out into the deep ocean. And as I said at the beginning, the Great Barrier Reef, half of it has been destroyed in the last 30 years because as the ocean heats up, the coral bleaches. Now, how does it bleach? So coral is made from calcium carbonate, and it has this really cute little photosynthetic algae, and they have a symbiotic relationship. It's called zooxanthellae. I've told you this guys before. I just love its name, zooxanthellae. It lives in the little holes in the coral, and it produces the food. But what happens when the ocean gets too hot, the zooxanthellae goes kind of nuts. It makes too much oxygen. The coral structure's like, what's going on? And it expels all the zooxanthellae. So it loses its color. And when they do this iridescent, they can do iridescent colors when they expel the zooxanthellae. And that can be like a sunscreen, like, oh, help, I need protection, and also a warning sign that something's going wrong for the coral. The other thing that's happening is we have worse storms, and the storms affect the coral. And the coral, offshore of a mainland is, helps mitigate the force of a storm as it comes ashore. So you want robust and healthy coral reefs. But the other thing is that all the CO2 that's going into the ocean is is basically the CO2 mixes with the water molecule, and it takes one of the hydrogens and it takes the oxygen and it makes an acid, and the acidicness of it is making it harder for the calcium carbonate, both of the coral and of mollusks. So seashell, our mussels and our oysters, they're finding it harder to make the shells because of the acidification. So we really need to protect coral reefs. Have I made myself clear?
No, you have. And I thought you actually make a really good point that we're already geoengineering the atmosphere inadvertently. So some modest pullback would be nice. Yeah.
And the thing is that obviously, I bleat on and on about this every week. What we really need to be doing is decarbonizing, but that's not happening fast enough. So we need to pull every lever that we have. And this lever is, it's small, but it's mimicking what nature does. And, we already use cloud seeding in agriculture. We do that so that, crops can get rain and there's less hail. So they do that in Australia, they do that here in the US, they do it in China. And because these guys are doing it sort of carefully and mindfully, they're going slowly, they know that it needs to be, scaled up at a fast rate. They need to be able to make more of these clouds. They need to use renewable energy to drive it. Right now, it's coming from oil-based energy, and they know that's wrong. But the thing I like about it, I use this term, the low tech, high impact. It's not exactly low tech, but they're not using any synthetic chemicals apart from the fuel that they're using to drive the ships. They're not creating a ton of pollution. Mainly what it's doing is creating something that helps. And because they want to do it in small targeted areas, not the entire, size of Italy, Great Barrier Reef, which would take, 800 different cloud making stations. Their idea is to target specific, very important ecological reefs and to try and, save them. And
it's exciting. So is there any early indication as to how this is going, or is it still so early?
Well, this particular day was, they said, their most successful day. And as they were in the boats leaving it, they could look back and they could see the clouds that they had created were still, sitting above the ocean. So that was a really good sign, because this is the other thing. And I don't think I already said this, that the little water droplets, they defy gravity. Like when you have a cloud that has big water droplets, they're heavy, they turn into rain, and they, so the water just, goes and joins the other water in the ocean. But if you have little droplets, that cloud, cover will stay longer. And the idea is that you would get a ranger in different parts of the, the islands that make up, the coral atolls around the reef, to be out in his or her boat on a hot summer's day and creating these clouds to protect, a particular area of the reef. And like I said, these tropical reefs, they're so important. The health of the ocean is so important. Tony asked me if that was AI generated, because it looks so good.
It does look good. These are the water droplets that turn to cloud like a fog.
Yeah, this one's a fog.
So those
yeah,
who are just listening.
Yeah. So low lying, the water vapor that you can see, fog, and then when it gets higher up, it's clouds. And the idea is that it will, join the clouds, make more cloud cover. And
it's exciting. I mean, it's that there is a technology, that there is a science and a strategy to maybe save, as you say, a targeted area anyway of the Great Barrier Reef. Wow.
Yeah. I think, look, we just have to do everything that's smart, and this just, and we just have to be smart about this stuff. And so, yeah.
There was a story about the Defense Department and all the NOAA and hurricane information going away, and they weren't going to post it to their website anymore. And it was all part and parcel, it seemed, of the effort to erase from government websites any climate information and even weather information. Can you apparently that's changed now. The government has decided they're going to post this information after all, or some portion of it. Can you speak to this?
Yeah, can you believe they've had an about face? So what happened was, in June, NOAA had to come out and say, hey, we're not going to share our important data anymore from our satellites. It used to just be available online. So any scientists who wanted to look at it for forecasting weather, for keeping tabs on how much ice is melting in the Arctic, which is really super important to know how quickly climate change is actually happening. And they said, no, that's it. It's going to be gone by the end of June. No can do. And people were aghast. I mean, the National Weather Service, how are you going to be able to predict? Because the thing about the satellites that are being used, so they're from the Defense Department, and this program was actually started back in 62 or 69. And they put these 12 satellites up, and they have these special microwaves. They can see through clouds. They can see the surface of the earth night and day, which is super important, because what they can do, because they can, they have this ability, is that weather forecasters can go on and see the data. How high are the waves? what is the surface wind speed coming across the ocean? What is the direction of that wind speed? So they could predict this is going to be a hurricane category 4. No, this is only going to be a 3. Now it's gone up to a 4 again, and this is how quickly it will make landfall. This is vital, and particularly here. So the first about face was they said, you know what, we'll let this information be available until the end of July, peak hurricane season. And that, I think, also would have been, I'm sure that, Trump's base would have been like, because a lot of them live in very hurricane-prone states. Think of Florida. I mean, it's crazy for them.
Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, the Gulf states across the border, all red.
Yeah, exactly. Much, yeah, exactly. So they said, we'll keep it available till the end of July. And then last week, a couple of days before the end of July, they said, actually, we will keep it going till the end of the program. And the end of the program actually ends at the end of September next year. But what's happening is because those satellites and the data processing centers that, collate the data and then make it, put it into a digestible form for scientists and everyone to look at, they're getting outdated. So they've been launching more up-to-date satellites. There's one going up. There's one that went up, I think, in 2024. There's another going up in 2026. I think they have to keep making this information available because we are getting worse storms, and we do need to be able to have this information so that we can prepare, so that we can be as safe as possible.
Well, there's a lot of the business community that depends on this. There are fisheries that depend on it. There are a bunch of business communities along the Gulf, as you said. I mean, if you care only about the oil industry, which sort of is where the administration has its heart, there are plenty of oil rigs and plenty of oil interests. I mean, these refining areas are down there along the Gulf Coast. It's so they're hurricane vulnerable, I guess is the point. And so that information is critical even just to those businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a good about face. I mean, it was, no one could believe when they first said, we have this information, but we're not going to share it. Those days are over. I mean, why? That's
the
dumb.
idea also, although it seems like a quaint one now, because all of the things and institutions in Washington are supposed to be owned by the people, and the people are supposed to have access to a lot of it. Some of it they can't have access to for national security reasons, et cetera. But those are the people's satellites. The taxpayers pay for them. Mm-hmm. The data that comes down for climate, for weather, et cetera, we're paying for that information, and the government shouldn't suppress it.
It's out.
So for a philosophical agenda or for any other reason. That's great to have that coming back. Well, you've not disappointed. You brought us some good news. I can't believe it. These seem like grim times, but you've done it. You can find Belinda Waymouth across social media. Weymouth is Waymouth. We really love our time with you. So thank you for making time for us today.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Appreciate it. Belinda Waymouth, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.
That's It's the Planet Stupid for today.
More.
It's the planet stupid. No. It's the planet stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.